All right, let's dive right in today. We're going to be getting into something I know a lot of you have been asking about, mastering the art of connection. And we're going to be taking all of our cues from this book here, How to Make People Like You in 90 Seconds or Less. So get ready, because we are about to unlock some serious secrets about building those genuine, strong relationships quickly. We're going to be talking about some body language hacks, some magic words that can unlock amazing conversations. And get this, we're even going to be learning how to figure out somebody's sensory preference to connect with them on a deeper level.
It's amazing how Boothman blends the psychology behind connection with really practical, actionable advice. And he has research to back up all of his ideas.
Right from the start, he kind of throws this idea at you that people are our greatest resource. Now, at first, that might sound a little strange.
But if you think about it, our connections, our relationships with people, impact every single part of our lives, from our personal happiness and well-being to our success at work, and even how long we live. There was this fascinating study done in Alameda County, and it found that people with strong social ties actually live longer. And this is regardless of their income or their health habits.
So really taking the time to build those strong connections isn't just about feeling good. It's actually a proactive step towards living a longer, healthier life.
That's right. It really is. Like this secret weapon for longevity. Let's get into first impressions. Boothman doesn't pull any punches.
Yeah.
He says straight up that you've got 90 seconds to make someone like you.
90 seconds.
There's barely enough time to choose an Instagram filter.
No pressure, right. But I'm glad that he at least gives some advice about how to make those seconds count. And it sounds like it all starts with body language. He talked about this concept of open versus closed body language.
Think about it. Open hands, uncrossed arms, leaning in. Those are all signals that project warmth and trust. But then, on the other hand, you've got crossed arms, avoiding eye contact. Things like that create distance, even if you don't mean to.
It's like you're saying stay back with your body, so pay attention to what your body language is saying, because it might be sending signals you're not even aware of. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Boothman talks about the study by Morabian, and it found that only 7% of communication is about the actual words we use.
Yeah, the rest comes from our tone of voice and our body language.
It's not just what you say, but how you say it, and how you're holding your body while you're saying it. And this is what he calls congruence, making sure that your words and your body language are on the same page. So like imagine you're telling someone that you're happy to see them, but your arms are crossed and you're frowning.
Yeah, then you've got a problem.
Exactly.
It creates this sense of distrust. Like you're not being genuine. There's this really good example in the book about somebody who's clearly angry, but they're trying to smile at the same time.
Oh, I bet that's creepy.
It is.
You're sending mixed signals, and that makes people uneasy. It's like your brain is trying to figure out what's real.
Totally.
And what's an act. Now we've got to ask, are you accidentally sending mixed messages too? Something to think about.
Absolutely. Now for that first impression, Boothman suggests something called the open eye beam high, lean greeting.
Okay, hold on. Open eye beam high, lean. I'm intrigued, but can you break that down for me?
Sure. It's all about coming across as confident and approachable. It all starts with a genuine open attitude. From there, you make direct eye contact. You give a genuine smile. And as you introduce yourself, you say hi. And as you start talking, you lean in just slightly to show you're interested.
I love how he makes it sound so doable. It's not about putting on an act. It's about amplifying who you really are in a way that invites connection. Okay, so we've aced that first impression. Now how do we keep the conversation flowing?
Well, the secret is less about talking and more about asking the right questions. Boothman is a big believer in open questions. These are the questions that invite the other person to open up and share more than just a yes or no answer.
Give me some examples. What kind of questions are we talking about?
So instead of asking, are you enjoying the party? Which kind of shuts down the conversation. Try asking something like, what's been the highlight of your evening so far?
Oh, I see. You're giving them permission to tell their story, to be the star. And this works everywhere, right? I mean, from the supermarket checkout line to a fancy gala.
Absolutely. Boothman gives a ton of examples that you can use in any situation. The point is to be genuinely curious and to let the conversation flow naturally. But asking great questions is only half the battle. You also need to be a good listener.
He calls active listening an act of love, which sounds a little intense for something we do every day, but...
I get it. It's about going beyond just hearing the words.
Yeah.
And tuning into the emotions behind them. You're not just repeating what they said. You're really engaging with their message.
All right, so how do we become active listening ninjas? What are the secret moves?
It's a mix of verbal and physical cues. Verbally, you can ask clarifying questions, you can summarize their points to show that you're following along, and you can offer words of encouragement. Physically, you can maintain eye contact, nod your head, and use that open body language that we talked about before.
All these little things can completely change the vibe of a conversation. You make the other person feel heard and understood, and that builds a stronger connection. Now, be honest with yourself. How good are you at truly listening? It's something to think about.
Now, for something completely different, Boothman says that people actually experience the world through different senses: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
Right, hold on. Tell me more about these sensory preferences. How do we know what somebody is, and why does it even matter?
So visual people are drawn to appearances. They might use phrases like, "I see what you mean," or "that looks good." They tend to be fast talkers, super organized, and very detail-oriented.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the auditory folks? How do they experience the world?
Auditories are all about sound. They love music, they love great conversations, and they'll often use phrases like, "that sounds good," or "I hear you." They tend to be great listeners. They have very melodic voices and are really sensitive to tone.
Okay, and what about the kinesthetics? What makes them tick?
Kinesthetics are all about physical sensations and feelings. You'll hear them saying things like, "I feel you," or "let's touch base." They tend to be very warm and expressive, and they really value comfort and connection.
Wow, it's like we're speaking different languages without even realizing it. So how do we use this to our advantage in those crucial 90 seconds?
Well, Boothman gives tons of examples of how each type communicates, both through their words and their body language. Once you figure out someone's preference, you can actually adjust your own style to connect with them on their level.
So if I'm talking to a visual person, I might use more descriptive language, almost like painting a picture with my words. And with an auditory person, I'd focus on my tone of voice and make sure my message is really clear and concise. And for a kinesthetic person, I might use more touch, like offer a warm handshake and make sure that they're comfortable in the space.
That's exactly right. You're tailoring your approach to match how they prefer to receive information.
I'm telling you, this is blowing my mind. I'm already thinking about everybody I know and where they might fall on the spectrum. It explains so much about how we interact.
It's a really powerful tool for building rapport, but it takes practice. Pay attention to the words people use, their body language, how they respond to different things.
It's like becoming a people whisperer.
Right.
All right, we've talked about first impressions, how to keep conversations flowing, active listening, and even these sensory preferences. Now, how do we make sure people actually remember us after that initial 90 seconds?
Well, going back to that Mehrabian research, the one about how visual input affects our memory, Boothman suggests that we develop our own unique handle, something memorable about our style or personality. That makes us stand out.
I like this. Give me an example. What kind of handle works?
He tells this great story about a salesperson who used his Newfoundland heritage to his advantage. He would tell his customers, just ask for the Newfie when they came back. And it became his trademark, a way for him to be instantly recognizable.
Okay, that's clever. It's about finding something authentic about yourself,
right?
Something that reflects your personality or your background and turning it into a lasting impression.
Exactly.
So it could be anything, a signature piece of clothing, a unique skill or talent, even a captivating story that you like to share. The key is to make it memorable and link it to who you are.
Exactly.
This is fantastic. It's like you're giving people this mental hook to hang their memory on. We've learned so much already, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface. We are just getting started.
Okay, so let's talk about something Boothman calls matching and mirroring. It's this subtle but really powerful technique for creating a sense of synchronicity.
Yeah.
And deepening that connection that you've already established.
Yeah. Matching and mirroring. Okay, I'm all ears. Does this mean, like, I need to show up in the same outfit as the person I'm talking to? Because my fashion sense is questionable at best.
Not quite. It's a lot more subtle than that.
Yeah.
So matching is about doing the same thing as the other person. So, for example, if they lean forward, you lean forward. Mirroring is more like looking in a mirror. If they move their left hand, you move your right.
So you're creating this subconscious connection through physical cues, but wouldn't that be super obvious? Like, hey, I'm copying you.
It's all about being subtle and respectful. You're not mimicking their every move. You're just picking up on their overall body language. And gently aligning yourself with it. If you do it right, it should feel natural, almost unnoticeable.
Okay, I can kind of see that. It's like you're creating this understanding without even saying anything, like you're on the same wavelength. But I gotta say, I'm just picturing myself trying to do this and feeling a little awkward.
It might feel a little strange at first, but with practice, it becomes second nature. You can start with simple things, like matching their posture, or how they cross their legs, or even the gestures they make when they're talking. You can even mirror their tone of voice, their pace, and the words they use.
So if someone is speaking softly and slowly, I might adjust my voice to match their energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It creates this sense of harmony, like you're vibing on the same frequency. Boothman even talks about synchronizing your breathing with the other person.
Hold on. How do you even notice someone's breathing without, like, staring at their chest?
You can pick up on subtle cues by watching their shoulders rise and fall, or even just the movement of their clothes. It's not about focusing on their every breath, but more about tuning into their overall rhythm and gently syncing up with it.
This is blowing my mind. There's so much going on beneath the surface of our conversation.
Right. The more you pay attention to those nonverbal cues, the better you're going to become at building rapport and creating those genuine connections. But remember, synchronizing isn't just about physical gestures. It's also about matching someone's energy and attitude.
Okay, but how do you do that authentically without feeling like you're putting on some kind of fake persona?
It's all about finding that common ground. So let's say you're meeting someone who's super excited about a project they're working on. Even if you don't share that passion, you can still match their enthusiasm and express genuine curiosity.
So it's like you're tapping into that shared human experience, that emotional connection that transcends individual interests.
Exactly. We've all felt excitement, disappointment, joy, frustration. Finding those common points is like building a bridge between two people.
Boothman also mentions the importance of handling compliments gracefully. You know, I've definitely been in situations where I've gotten a compliment, and I just felt so awkward. I kind of downplayed it or brushed it off. What's the best way to respond to a compliment without looking like a deer in the headlights?
He stresses the power of just saying thank you. Just accept the compliment gracefully. Resist the urge to deflect or downplay it. It can actually come off as insincere or even rude.
I never thought of it that way. I thought I was being humble. But really, I was just missing a chance to connect.
And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can expand on what they complimented you on. So, for example, if they say, "That's a beautiful dress," you could say, "Thank you. I found it at this great little boutique downtown."
So it's about acknowledging the compliment, but not making it all about you. Now let's talk about the role of tonality in making connections. Boothman talks about having a pleasing tonality. What does that even mean? And how do we improve our own tonality? Because my voice tends to go up like an octave when I get nervous.
It's all about speaking from your diaphragm, not your chest. When you speak from your diaphragm, your voice is deeper and richer, and it projects confidence and warmth. But when you speak from your chest, your voice can sound higher pitched or monotone, and that can sound a little grating or convey insecurity.
Okay, so how do we find that diaphragm voice? I'm trying to channel my inner James Earl Jones right now, and it's not working.
Here's a trick. Put one hand on your chest and the other on your stomach. And take a deep breath. Notice which hand moves. If it's mostly your chest, you're breathing from your chest. You want to breathe from your diaphragm.
Yeah.
So your stomach expands as you inhale.
Oh, like when you do that yoga breathing, where you fill your belly with air. I can do that.
Exactly. Practice breathing from that space and speaking from there. It might feel weird at first, but with practice, it'll become more natural. You'll be surprised how much it changes. The way you sound and the way people perceive you.
I'm starting to see how all of these things, body language, tonality, active listening, even breathing, all work together to create this powerful presence.
You're like a conductor, leading an orchestra of connection. And the conductor needs to be fully present and engaged. It's about conveying warmth, sincerity, and respect through every note you play. Now, remember those sensory preferences we talked about? Visuals, auditories, kinesthetics. Well, Boothman takes this even deeper and gives us some really powerful tools to understand how we can use this knowledge to make a lasting impression.
Okay, let's unlock those secrets, right? Lay it on me. How do we use this sensory knowledge to, like, really make an impact?
We know how we talked about how people have those sensory preferences. Boothman goes beyond just identifying them and actually gives you ways to tailor your language to connect with them on a deeper level. So, for example, visuals tend to use a lot of words and phrases that are related to sight, like clear, bright, or see.
So if I'm talking to a visual person, it's almost like I need to create a movie in their head, like paint a picture with my words.
Yeah, exactly. Now imagine you're talking to an auditory person about their recent vacation. Instead of asking, "Did you have a good time?" try asking something like, "Close your eyes for a second. What's the first sound that pops into your head when you think about your trip?
Oh, that's good. You're speaking directly to their sensory world. And for kinesthetics, I bet it's all about using words that evoke feelings and sensations.
You got it.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, do you understand? You might say, can you feel that? Or instead of, let's get together soon, try. Let's touch base next week.
Okay. I am so rethinking how I approach conversations now. Boothman tells this story about this couple, John and Lizzie, who have this huge miscommunication about buying a car. And it really brings this idea to life.
Oh, yeah, that's a great story.
So John, the visual guy, is super stoked about this bright yellow Maserati. He can already picture them cruising down the coast, wind in their hair, turning heads. But Lizzie, who's the auditory one, all she can hear is the sound of bills piling up. And she just doesn't get why John isn't listening to her concerns.
Yeah, they're totally talking past each other.
It's like a communication breakdown waiting to happen.
Exactly.
And then John tries to smooth things over by giving Lizzie this beautiful silk scarf, which makes sense to him as a visual person. But it just makes her feel even more disconnected. What she really wanted was just to have a heartfelt conversation, something that resonated with her auditory preference.
Right.
It just shows you how important it is to not only know your own preferences, but also the preferences of the person you're communicating with, especially in those first 90 seconds. So what are some things we can look for to, avoid those kinds of miscommunications?
Well, pay attention to their words, the way they describe their experiences, their body language. Are they using visual metaphors like, I see what you mean? Or are they saying things like, that rings a bell? Or, I feel you. Those are your clues. Once you've got a sense of their preference, you can adjust your communication style accordingly.
So it's not just about being aware of these different types, but also being able to adapt on the fly and meet people where they are.
Exactly. It's like having the secret decoder ring for human communication.
Now, Boothman has this great exercise in the book to help you figure out your own dominant sensory preference.
Oh, yeah.
I love a good self-discovery quiz. So what kind of questions does he ask?
Well, he gives you these different scenarios and asks you to choose the option that feels the most true to you. So, for example, he might ask, if only 3 rooms were left at a beach resort, would you pick the room with? An ocean view but lots of noise. The sounds of the ocean but no view. Or comfort but no view and lots of noise.
Oh, that's tough. I think I'd go for the ocean view, even with the noise. I love a good view. What does that say about me?
It sounds like you might be a visual person.
Yeah.
They're often drawn to aesthetics and appreciate a pleasing view, but he asks you a lot of other questions too, like how you explain things, the words you use most often, even how you find your way around a new city.
So it's about noticing the patterns in your behavior and your preferences across different areas of your life. It's like you're holding up a mirror to yourself and really seeing how you tick.
It's about becoming more self-aware. And that self-awareness is the key to unlocking more meaningful connections with others.
This has been amazing. I feel like I have this whole new set of tools now for building stronger, more genuine relationships.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, from first impressions and congruent communication to the power of active listening and recognizing those sensory preferences. But the main thing to remember is that connecting with people is a skill. And like any skill, it takes practice.
It's about showing up with a positive attitude and a genuine desire to connect, to really understand the person in front of you.
And as you go out there and put these insights into practice, I want to leave you with this question to think about. Now that you understand how to connect with people on a deeper level, what kind of relationships do you want to create in your life?
What a great question, everyone listening. Think about the qualities that you value in your relationships and how you can use the tools we've talked about today to create those connections. Until next time, happy connecting.